What's Paul Shortino been doing these days in the music business?
Well, I finished an album last year in June, and then it was just recently released here in the States on Steve Vai's label. I'm getting ready to go in the studio and work with King Kobra. We're going to go in March 21st.
So full-length album with King Kobra?
Yeah. With all the original guys except for Mark, of course.
Of course.
So it's with David Michael Phillips, Mick Sweeta, Johnny Rod, and of course Carmine Appice, or Appice.
How is it working with Carmine?
It's great, actually. And it's kind of neat working with a legend. We've done stuff in the past, but this is the first time that we've really worked together on a project. So I'm looking forward to moving forward, and we got like about 5 songs right now that are ready to track, and we're just still working on material.
So how did you hook up with King Kobra in the first place?
What happened was me and Carmine have been friends for years, and I know the other guys, but I don't know them really well. But then there's a band here in Las Vegas that just released a record, and they're good friends of mine. They're called Sin City Sinners. And Brent Muscat from Faster Pussycat is the one of the main guys in the band. They usually have people come out. They do like 4 or 5 songs and feature that guest. Well, David and Carmine came up, and it was actually Carmine was performing, and David lives in Arizona, so he came up. I learned a couple King Kobra songs and ended up singing a Vanilla Fudge song with Carmine. We all jammed together, and then we spent a couple days here at my house in my studio and working out on ideas. And that's how it all came about, really. It was actually came about through the gig. He had called me before and asked me if I'd be interested, and I said sure. But I think the breaker, or I would say the moment that I was really in is when we really worked together on some new material. And we all just really gelled well together, and we got some really good songs.
Do you find that the people today is going to be really into King Kobra? Like, do they remember King Kobra from the past? And everybody's going to jump on this?
I don't know about that, but they're going to do some festivals, and they got somebody that wants to release the album, so we'll see what happens, In this day and age and the way the economy is and the record business, who knows? I think it's just a matter of just getting some new product out there and going out and do some gigs. I think that's what I don't think we're looking for anything more than that, you know what I mean?
So you're going to be playing like mostly in the United States for tours?
In Europe.
In Europe?
Japan. So yeah, we'll be doing festivals. I don't think we'll be doing. He doesn't want to do any clubs, but I don't know what's going to happen. He's pretty much in control of the situation. I'm just a singer.
In California, how is it these days? You're playing some gigs on your solo projects and stuff like that?
Uh-huh. Well, I'm not in California anymore. I live in Las Vegas. I've done some gigs here in town, just by myself, where I front a band, and they do a few of my songs. But I haven't been out and touring for a long time. And I was planning on touring that record, Chasing My Dreams, but because I haven't been out there in a long time, it's really tough for an agent to get me booked on some dates. So, and to put a band together, you got to have something going. You know what I mean? Everybody needs to make money. So, and I don't really have a deep pocketbook to put everybody on retainer. So it's pretty much like if I can get some dates and do some shows, then we put together a band. I actually had the band together with a guitarist named Johnny Douglas, a bass player Tyler Burgess, and drummer Derek Pontier, who used to be with Great White.
Okay.
And a guitarist Ira Black. We were working on stuff and getting ready for a tour, but then it was bad timing at the end of the year, because when the record came out, and I had some agents over in Europe for some European things going on because the record was released over there. It was the wrong time of the year because people were hitting vacations, a lot of the clubs and stuff, and festivals were already booked. So now they've released the album here in the States and digitally, And, it's the same deal. With the economy and everything, it's just tough getting out there.
For your album, Chasing the Dream, how long did it take you to make that?
Well, it was really weird. My wife had gotten me to do a track called Rock Me for Voices of Rock. The guitarist and producer of that, Michael Voss, sent me the song. I did it, sent it back to him, and the next thing I knew, they asked me if I would be interested in doing a record with Michael and a solo record, and I said sure. Money wasn't bad, and he sent me over one track. It was called Missing, and then I started going through what I had, and he started sending me more stuff, and it really didn't take that long. I think it was probably about 3 months,
Mostly done in your studio?
Just my vocals.
Okay.
He recorded everything in Europe and then sent me stereo tracks I even sent him stuff that I had recorded, and then he re-recorded it over there on some stuff that I had, some ideas that I had with other songwriters and stuff, and that's pretty much how that went down. It's the easiest record I've ever done, really. They're getting easier these days, being able to email people's tracks.
Yeah, nobody has to leave home.
Exactly. So right now I'm also working with a guitarist, Michael Kosen, and he's out of I think it's San Jose, California. And he sent me some tracks, and I'm rewriting some of the melodies and lyrics, and it's some good stuff. It's kind of more like in the Robin Trower blues vein, Yeah, it's got a real blues vibe to it. So it's just another thing that my wife handles a lot of my business, and it's just something that, come along and pays the bills.
Yeah, you need the bills paid. That usually helps.
It certainly does.
Hey, man, you were in the movie Spinal Tap. How did you land that part to be the cool dude that Spinal Tap gets to meet?
Well, how that happened was Rough Cutt at that time was, before we got signed, we were playing the Troubadour, and the manager at that time, for Rough Cutt was Wendy Dio, Ronnie Dio's wife, and she put an ad out, I think it was L.A. Weekly, full-page ad of the band, and somebody from the casting agency of the movie saw the ad, came down to the show, saw us perform, and asked 3 of us guys who were playing that night. In fact, Jakey Lee was in the band at the time, and he was asked to come to the casting call, and so was the drummer Dave Halford of Rough Cutt. And I just got there ahead of those guys, and I had already had my white outfit. That was they didn't have to give me any casting, or the wardrobe didn't have to fit me for anything, because I came totally prepared, and that's pretty much how I got the gig. I just showed up first and dressed the part.
That's cool, and you're engraved forever as being, that guy in that movie with the girls.
Oh, Duke Fame, of course. When we were on the road with Dio, or before we went on the road with Dio, we were out on the road with Crocus and Accept just after that movie had come out, after our record was released, and we couldn't get a line check, or it was Rough Cutt, Accept, and Crocus. Crocus was the headliner. And all of a sudden they were showing the movie in the Holiday Inns and the Howard Johnsons, and the road manager came up to our dressing room and asked me if I was Duke Fame, and I said, yeah. He said, well, the guys in Crocus want to meet you, and so we went backstage, and from that point on, we got a line check, and we went from Budweiser to Heineken.
Wow.
On the list, so I kind of hung out with those guys in the back. And another funny story was I was picking up Ronnie and Wendy Dio from LAX airport, and they had their own limo company at the time, and I showed up to help them with their luggage and stuff in the limo. And as I showed up, REO Speedwagon was there getting their luggage and noticed who I was and started giving me, joking around, and the road manager came over and asked if the guys, would mind meeting me and everything, and they go, here you are, you're on your way to the Normo Dome in a in a limo, and we're getting picked up in a shuttle bus. Something wrong with that picture.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was kind of funny. I've gotten a lot of mileage out of that. It's people actually recognize me as Duke Fame before they even recognize me as who I am sometimes. So it's kind of funny.
So cool and so funny at the same time, without a character like that.
Totally. And I got my SAG card out of it, Screen Actors Guild card. So shortly after that, I did something on Fame because they had Rough Cutt play on Fame, the whole band. And then I started getting, casting calls to the Ghoulies and all kinds of movies. And every time I went to casting call, there was Michael DeBar's there, and he'd get there ahead of me, and he'd end up getting the part. So I just stopped going to casting calls. It's not my bag, anyways, even though I got my actor's card.
And you say you played with J.K. Lee and Rough Cutt. How was that partnership back in the day?
Actually, it was really cool. And then Ozzy needed a guitarist, and it was a great opportunity for Jake. So no one wanted to hold him back from any success. I mean, we all were striving to get where we wanted to go. And when something like that pops up, for a guitarist, I mean, hey, Ozzy is Ozzy.
Right.
So I think he was hoping to work with Ronnie, and the Ozzy thing came along sooner, I think, so he took that gig, and the rest is history on that end. And we ended up replacing Jake with Craig Goldie,
Dio,
and Chris Hager, and Matt Thorne joined the band because the band, after Jake left, the band sort of dispersed and went their own. A couple guys went into Rat, and it was just me and the drummer, and then we restructured the band. And then after Craig Goldie left, Amir DeRock replaced him, and then we got signed to Warner Brothers.
You're naming a lot of Ozzy people here. Amir was one of the guys that auditioned also for Ozzy Osbourne.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Did you keep in contact with Jake while he was on tour with Ozzy?
Not really. We ended up Rough Cutt doing a gig in Bakersfield with Ozzy when Jake was in the band. He ended up moving to Europe.
Okay.
And but he lives out here in Las Vegas now. We just haven't crossed paths yet. I would like to see him and say hi to him and stuff. So I'm hoping to have that opportunity.
I'm sure it'll present itself.
Yeah, I think the opportunity will come around at the right time,
How did you get into Quiet Riot at the time?
Well, it was really weird. It was we were touring Japan, and Quiet Riot was touring ahead of us. We had just gotten dropped from our label from Warner Brothers after our second album, and so we were going home, and we just finished doing Tokyo, and they had just finished doing Tokyo ahead of us, so they were like a week or two ahead of us. And they had a big falling out in Tokyo, and it was really weird because me and the guys in Rough Cutt had a little bit of a falling out at the same time. So when I got home, I didn't know about it, but my manager had come to me and asked me if I'd be interested in checking it out. And so I went and checked it out and did some stuff with them in the studio, and then Rough Cutt went in the studio and was working on some stuff to try to get re-signed to a label. And it ended up doing a few tracks, and then they called me and asked me if I'd want to join Quiet Riot, and so I did. I don't regret that. I think it's been a good stepping stone, but there was a lot of politics of that band, when I joined it, with the producer and everything. We were in a year of litigation, and how it all happened, we were doing the Stars thing, I think. That's how we all kind of hooked up and met each other.
Hearing aid?
Yeah, the hearing aid thing, yeah. And so we kind of became friends there. I was pretty good friends with Kevin anyways. So we kind of had an opportunity to be thrown in the mix with a whole bunch of other, rock stars at the time, and everybody kind of put their egos in their back pocket, and everybody had a great time doing that. So it was a good memory of how everybody got along. And then once we did get together and try to become a band, it just went into litigation for a while. We sorted that out, and then it was shortly lived, unfortunately, but it was a real good band. We did some really good stuff. We did some great shows together, and it was a lot of fun.
For your website, do you keep that yourself? Do you update it yourself and all that stuff? You do Facebook and all that?
My wife keeps a lot of that up. She keeps on top of that, and I have a webmaster guy that does that. But I answer the fans when they want to know what's going on.
It's a good way to keep in touch with the people these days.
Oh, yeah. It's the only way when you're not out there touring, And thanks God for the internet because, I think that was an opening for a lot of independent record companies, bands that young talent that want to be seen and heard. It's really opened the door for that. But as far as the record company, I think it hurt the record industry big time. They weren't ready for the internet.
But for independence, it helped a lot.
Oh, absolutely. Independence, it helped a lot, and just artists in general, to be able to put their stuff out there and people hear it,
That's awesome, and now people do their own videos and post it on YouTube and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. And it's come so far. And technology has made it easier. 20 years ago, you couldn't record stuff in your bedroom. You know what I mean?
Right.
Everything was studio. You get $200,000 advance from the record company that you got to pay back, and $50,000 goes to the producer, and just about everything but about $25,000 goes to making the record. The studio and the engineer that you want to use, or that the producer wants to use, that's a separate deal, And so you end up finding yourself after you've gotten a $200,000 record deal that you've worked all year out on the road, on tour, and you come home to do another record and you're still broke.
Wow.
Because you still haven't recouped.
Huh.
And then, like Quiet Riot, they were out in station wagons touring when their first record came out, and all of a sudden it hit the charts, and they got, what happened with Rough Cutt? It was bad timing. We actually had finished our album before Quiet Riot, Motley Crue, Rat, all those people, Dokken, and it got held up on release date and producer. We actually were signed. We didn't finish the record. We actually were signed before any of those bands, and then we were in a year and so trying to get a producer.
Wow.
We were waiting on Teddy Templeman, and he was busy dealing with Eric Clapton and Lindsey Buckingham doing a record, and so we missed the window, the door. And the PMRC, typical Gore, came down on the heavy metal, putting stickers on stuff. And that was great if you got a sticker on your record if you already had radio play and they knew who you were. But if you were a new act, I noticed that we were on one of the largest tours in the world at that time, on the Sacred Heart tour with Dio, and we'd be going to a radio station there. Our record would be completely sealed up, and it was like, okay, what's up with this? Did you guys check this album out?
Wow.
No, we haven't seen it yet. And we'd be going to do an interview for the show that night. It was kind of a letdown, even being signed to such a large label like Warner Brothers. We just kind of got lost in the shuffle. And when you got Van Halen, ZZ Top, Madonna are your top people, and on the label. Not to mention all the other people that are signed to Warner Brothers. Ronnie Dio was signed to Warner Brothers. But at that time, Van Halen, Madonna, ZZ Top were really, really big. They were really bringing in the ship. So we kind of got lost in the shuffle. But it's been a great learning experience. It's been a wonderful ride on my career. It looks like everything's coming back around with that kind of music now because after Nirvana, it kind of killed heavy metal.
But now there's going to be a revive of all that stuff because
the
people...
grunge thing kind of just killed it all, you know.
But the internet's allowing the kids of today, you know, with Guitar Hero games and
oh, absolutely.
Band, you know, to
it seems like everybody wants to hear that 80s music, and I think it was really good music, and there was a lot of good 80s music. I think it got a little lost when the record companies started just signing, you know, everybody.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I'm not going to bad rap any of those bands because they all did well, you know, but that's where the big hair band actually comes in when they bag on the hair days, you know, with the 80s is pretty much the tail end of the 80s. But the first part of the 80s, there was a lot of good music. You know, Priest was out there, Iron Maiden, Dio. I mean, there was a lot of good music. Foreigner, even though they were out of the 70s, but still, they were still cranking in the 80s, you know. Aerosmith, you know, they were still 70 bands, but they seemed to carry on. But there was a lot of good bands out of the 80s.
Awesome stuff, Paul. It's been a pleasure talking to you. And Corey and Jamie J. Valley, you know them from California.
Yeah.
They say hi to you, and they're gonna
tell
see.
them
you.
I said hey back.
They're gonna hear you, and of course they're gonna see you at Feel Goods. Now, where's that?
That's just up the street from me.
Oh, okay.
It's on Sahara and between Rainbow and Torrey Pines, and it's a great club here in Las Vegas. It's like the Roxy or the Whiskey here in Vegas.
So you live not far from there?
Not at all. I'm 5 minutes from everything.
5 minutes from everything.
I
That's
love
cool.
it here.
All right, Paul. Well, it's been a pleasure, and thank you very much for this interview. And I'll let you know when it airs,
Have a great life.
Hey, thank you very much, and you too. And
you got it, man.
You let me know when that King Kobra album comes out.
I will. I'll keep your number on file, brother.
All right. Thank you very much, and you have a great evening.
You have a great life. I'll talk to you later.